Today, we're going to be diving into how to access data in a multi-system world, breaking down the data challenges in the real estate industry. Going to be joined by a special guest today, as soon as my slides want to progress there, is Sadie from the MRI Leverton team. So my name is Max Smith. I am the sales director over here at Synatic, oversee the global sales organization. And Synatic is a hybrid integration platform that enables real estate teams to integrate and orchestrate data from multiple systems to enable things downstream like better reporting, less duplicate work, and ultimately cleaner data for reporting and data that can be consumed by the upper management team. My special guest today, Sandy, I will kick it over to her and let her introduce herself.
Thank you. So my name is Sandra Hachat. I am the Senior Sales Director for MRI's Leverton product, or MRI Contract Intelligence, we call it as well. And what we do is we take all of that unstructured data from your leases and your contracts and turn that into structured data. That way then Max's team is able to use that to be able to spread that throughout your organization, and it's easily consumable and able to be used. We use artificial intelligence to run through the contracts to pull out the data and really turn that unstructured mess of legalese into very specific data points that are exceptionally consumable.
No, I appreciate that, Sandy. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction and nice little words about Synatic, because I think you highlight on a couple of good points that we'll touch on later in the presentation. But the platform can store structured and unstructured data. So no matter what source you're getting it from, what that file format is, we can take those file formats, put it in the format that it needs to, and push that information where it needs to. For us, it's all about getting the right data to the right person at the right time. And with that, we'll dive into our presentation here. So really looking at how CRE teams are getting data from multiple different systems. And really, the lay of the land currently is many of those systems are not integrated. And if they are, it's not in the way that it should be. So what does that lead all of us to do is pop out our good friend, Mr. Excel. And if you're like me, it's sort of a love-hate relationship, if you will. Using Excel spreadsheets to record data from multiple different sources and try to report on it is tough enough, let alone if you're an asset manager and you have to collect reports from 5 different people, then to report on those. An extra 5 here, an extra 0 there, when they're doing these reports and compiling all that information from disparate systems, and then you're trying to compile those 5 people reports. So those 2 errors on one report all of a sudden become 20 errors across 5 or 6 or 7 people's reports. And now what's the accuracy of that data? What's the accuracy of that report that you're pushing up to upper management? The simple answer is you really can't work with the data that you're currently getting, because it's all manually pulled. Nothing is real time. And most importantly, there's no way to ensure that it's duplicate and error free. And that's one of the biggest points of the Synatic platform, that we enable organizations to operate on a day-to-day basis with clean and unduplicated data. I was just talking with a large brokerage team a couple days ago, and they are doing manual data pulls. So from their MLS system to their CRM, once a night at most, sometimes they forget every 2 or 3 days, they're uploading that information. So they're not able to act on real-time information. And it's causing time delays because they're having to do manual uploads of that information. They're trying to report on it, and it's taking just way more time than it needs to. And without that real-time flow of data, these guys are missing out on sales, because we all know how tight the single-family housing market is, especially the industrial market out here in Southern California. Good luck. If that listing is not hitting your website as soon as it comes to the market, you're not going to get that sale. And an example of, having to work and manually pull data from, more the commercial building side versus the brokerage side is meter data. Everything sub-meters lives in spreadsheets. And a lot of those spreadsheets, the only data enrichment that ever happens to them is property team to property team, because they're legacy spreadsheets that have been inherited over time, and those data errors have been passed down. There's no way to do quality control, data quality control on a monthly basis, have a second set of eyes look over that, because frankly, with the manual processes of pulling that data, manually uploading that data, manually trying to report on everything has added so much cost to the workflow that it's just impossible to add another set of eyes, add another person to the process, because you're not going to make money on it. Sandy, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing today with the current process of pulling data from system to system?
Great, absolutely. So a great point that you brought up a little bit ago was making sure that data is accurate, and then it gets moved into Excel sheets and people dump it all over the place. Well, at Leverton, we pride ourselves in being able to pull that accurate data, right? So that data is king, but it has to be accurate and it has to be clean. So our solution delivers that. But if it then gets past Excel to Excel to Excel to Excel, that accuracy is degraded, and we can't stand by it after it goes through all of those processes. And that's part of why we partner with Synatic, is to make sure that our clients are doing that, right? Like, the answer is, please don't do that, because we can't guarantee that the data, by the time it gets to your senior leadership, is accurate anymore. And then they're going to question your current tech stack, right? And you never want that to happen. You always want to have full support of what your current tech stack is. And in the real estate industry right now, the tech stacks they're built on many different platforms. It's really the only way to go. Picking a single stack platform, I have not met one real estate company, even the smallest ones, who only use one single tech stack, like one in a silo where it's one product. I
can't name any either.
No. And how are you combining all of that data? It's mostly done in Excel. And it, to be very direct, often becomes a hot mess.
It is.
Right? And then people are going to senior leadership, creating reports, creating dashboards, and all of this other, consumable data for them. But they're always a little bit nervous that the data is a little bit inaccurate, and that's where our partnership comes in play, right? We'll make sure the data is accurate, and Synatic's going to make sure that when we pull it from different places, it doesn't get manipulated, and that accuracy stays intact, and you can trust it.
Absolutely. No, and that's true. Accuracy of data, cleanliness of data is key, especially if you are, as an upper manager, CEO, asset manager, looking at all these compiled reports from a bunch of different people. You need to know and trust and be able to rely on that data to make your decisions. Am I going to go spend $100,000 on a new EMS system? Am I going to go put a new integrated access control system in my parking garage? You need to have the data to be able to action and support those decisions. Otherwise, it's potentially thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars out the window. And I think that's a great point, that, not everything is Excel spreadsheets, though. Some of the newer prop tech does have some APIs, so it does allow for, some very basic integration and moving of data, errored or not, frankly, from source to destination. And, what I really challenge the real estate world at that point is, if you're just moving basic data, whose job is it then to take care of that data? Whose job is it to quality control that data? What's the cost of that? And what happens if you don't find all those errors and you don't take care of them, versus a system like what you just mentioned, something that's fully integrated, where errors are removed. There's a deeper integration where you can run analytics on that data that's being passed back and forth. So, as we'll touch on in a little bit, is not only has a client paid rent, but does that fall within their lease charges? Does that meet escalation charges? There's a whole new world out there on what can be done in terms of integrations, because a lot of the integrations out there, as we just discussed, don't work today. And if they do, it's just basic information. And that is not what's going to take CRE to the next level. It's not going to enable that digital transformation, truly enabling the tenant to derive a whole bunch of data points that then the property management, asset management, and ownership can then action.
And the real estate industry is hungry for it right now. They are very hungry for it.
I mean, just the prop tech world alone, when I spent, almost 5.5 years looking through sub-meter billing spreadsheets, about 85 to 90% of those spreadsheets contained material errors that were impacting net operating income. So every single month, there was a tenant being overcharged or undercharged. And what does that do for the business? It's an easy if it's an undercharge. God forbid if it's an overcharge, because that's a potential lawsuit. And if you don't have any backups, what
Yeah.
happens to that? Excel spreadsheet, as great as they are, they don't provide an audit trail. And that's really what a lot of teams need nowadays, is not only the data to make decisions, but they need an audit trail on that data. And that's one of the things that Synatic enables for real estate organizations. So, as we just touched on, started to highlight a little bit, as you can see, lack of integration from system to system really creates a lot of pain points in property management, asset management, and real estate in general's day. I know when I spent all that time in the prop tech world, if I was trying to reach a property manager during the summer months, good luck. They had their head down. They were screen hopping system to system to system, old Excel spreadsheet after old Excel spreadsheet, trying to compile a budget for their asset management team to then get approved in the November, December timeframe, be ready to roll out January 1, February 1. Why? Why does it take so long? Why must people look through old Excels that we just discovered probably 80 to 90% of the time contain errors anyway, just to compile a report to give it to someone to compile more reports? There's a better way to do things, and budget season taking 5 or 6 months is too long. There's other things, there's more valuable things people can do at that time, because we all know the staffing constraints nowadays. We all know the pain that unfortunately COVID put on the real estate industry. And you're able to get back a whole bunch more time now if things are automated. No more extremely long budget reporting seasons. No real-time data to action, as we discussed a minute ago in the example with the brokers. If they're not able to action information the second it hits that MLS system, able to put that on the website, action it in their CRM, they're going to lose out, because there's companies nowadays that are already starting to think about this, engage and utilize Synatic to have that real-time flow of information, so they just sort of set it and forget it. What are some good real-time points and real-time insights that you've seen, Sandy, that have helped real estate companies sort of further along? How have you seen, I guess, real-time data come into play for some of these organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work a lot with obviously the commercial leases and other types of contracts along those lines, where people need real-time data that is super actionable in this economy currently. Kind of goes along the lines with the brokers, is in the due diligence process, right?
Yes.
So right now they usually have a war room where they'll hire in either a third party, or I have even had clients say that their bosses give them a pizza party to come in on a Saturday to abstract the leases. I told them I was sorry for them. That's awful. But that's what's happening, right? That's what's happening in the real estate industry. They want to go buy this portfolio. They're bidding after it, but they don't know what they want to bid, how they want to bid, or if they really want to bid it, until they go through the process of abstracting the leases out, at least the main points of the data, to find the risk, to find the true value. And then they're linking it up with other valuation systems similar to Argus and things of that nature. And the current process right now for a lot of clients is to do this manually, like I just said. And then that's creating these Excel docs that they're then keying into Argus, and it's just all over the place. Where if they use a platform like Leverton to abstract that data quickly, and then use Synatic to then push that into Argus or whatever valuation software that they're using, they're able to real time figure out, okay, what do we bid on this property? Do we actually want it? Is there risk? Is there so much tenant improvement work that we're on the hook for if we buy this that hasn't been completed, that it's not worth buying the portfolio, right? All of that needs to be done and figured out very quickly, because the market right now is people are selling and people are buying quickly because that real estate market is just changing so fast. Some people are not okay with the way things are going, and they're divesting, and they're divesting quickly. And then there's other groups that are gobbling that up, and they're doing it very quickly because they know it's a short window within the economy that this is going to be happening at such a high rate.
Yeah, no, that's very, very true. And I know a bunch of property teams that would have benefited from a solution like Leverton. You know, when I was working in the prop tech space, you know, spending hours and hours looking through different leases because of everything that happened with COVID, brokers had to get creative in some of the stuff that they offered people to get them into the office, you know, to wheel them away from the, you know, building down the street. And so that put sort of a data onus, if you will, on the property team. And, you know, they're already extended enough with having to deal with tenants, you know, having to interface with engineering when work orders need to be done. There's a million and one things that they can do. You know, having to focus on that is just one piece that can easily be taken off the plate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The retail side got hit hard with COVID, and they got really creative to their, I was very, very impressed to see how creative these property managers and owners in the real estate industry got to support the retail industry through COVID. And now they have to remember all of the creative things that they did, right?
Yes.
Because because we're coming out of it, and they're either need to make amendments to revert back to the old way, or they need to make sure that they're complying with that creative thing that they did for that one client, because a lot of the creativity couldn't be standardized. It had to be very customized per retail client. And now they're on the hook to stay in compliance with all of these different things that they've created that were out of the norm.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you track all that? You know, it's ask me what I had for breakfast 5 days ago and I don't remember. You know, it creates this
Absolutely.
impossible situation where
Mm-hmm.
a solution like yours paired with an integration platform like Synatic starts to alleviate some of those pain points and
Really does.
enables much quicker, just even at a glance, hey, here's what the escalation clause is for this tenant. Here's how much their rent is. Being able to find that and have snapshot, you know, sort of analysis done is key and is going to enable these teams to win going forward. You know, because as you just touched on, teams that are having to do this manual analysis, manual due diligence, they're losing to the people that have to the teams that have
Yep.
technology in place, you know,
Yep.
that or have larger staff. You know, there's teams nowadays that I see, you know, 4 or 5 staff that are operating like a 50-person business because they have all of their technology and they have all of their technology integrated. So it's, you know, no duplicate entry. It's, you know, no having to go manually try and plug billing leakage. You know, when we were just talking about leases there, what happens when those brokers got creative and the property team is using a standardized spreadsheet?
Right.
All of a sudden, you know, they could have been charging, you know, 4 or 5 more% for, let's say, after hours HVAC charges that they're missing out on. So how then do they begin to, you know, sort of plug that billing leakage? They really can't unless they're manually going through these spreadsheets until their eyes bleed and fall out every single month to find those errors. And that's really, again, where Synatic can pull out those errors,
Mm-hmm.
highlight all of that stuff, and just enable data to be fully operationalized. You know, no more looking through leases. I think is something all property management teams, you know, from the commercial to the residential side, could really get behind.
I agree. One of the great benefits and value that I always talk about in our partnerships is the ability to compare that data, right? So we rerun the leases through Leverton Contract Intelligence, and then you have your end system, you have your JDE, you have your Yardi, you have whatever your end system that your property management and your manual abstraction that you put in that you're billing off of has already been there. It's been there forever, but now it needs to be cleaned, right?
Yep.
And Synatic has built a way to compare the two pieces of information. So that way it pulls out the discrepancies and you're able to then go back and double check very easily using our software to search and read the lease and say, oh, no, that is actually correct because we forgot to give somebody an email that made that after hours HVAC. Here's the email. Let's update the lease and make sure the extraction is correct. Or, holy moly, we've missed something. And we have found so many misses for clients, late fees, after hour HVAC. There's full camera coverage,
Yeah.
full sections just missed, where people are not getting the full amount that they should be getting out of their properties being billed out and getting back into the business. And it's really low hanging fruit. It's low hanging fruit to bring in more dollars to your business.
It
The
is.
systems do
No,
it for you.
yeah, no, it does. Just have the software do it for you. No need to go hire a bunch of people to read through
Nope.
thousands and thousands of leases. There's software that can do that in seconds nowadays.
Yep.
Literally seconds, where it used to take months and months and entire, rooms full of people, no longer does that. And, I think that's an evolution of, some of what we've seen at buildings. 5, 10 years ago, we walk into a large Class A commercial office in, downtown LA, there's going to be massive server rooms. You go in there today and there's nothing but empty server racks because there's been that migration to the cloud and not having to be on site at the building to access information. We can now do things remotely. Why? Because of integrations and the cloud.
Yep. Absolutely.
And when we do eventually go back to the buildings, one of the things that we got to make sure is people can get in and out of the buildings. But as COVID showed, we want to make sure that that is really, really controlled. But for property managers, the only time they ever got yelled at is if an active tenant couldn't get in or out of the building. They never got yelled at to remove that employee who was fired, who
Mm-hmm.
might not be able to access the suite, but guess what? They can come into the base building system. And with all the craziness in the world today, that's something not only giving yourselves peace of mind, but giving your tenants peace of mind that only people that should be in the buildings are the ones in the buildings, not spreading COVID and not opening up any potentials for anything else to go on. And in order for a property manager to be able to find that, that's verifying with all your tenants, that's going through hundreds of rows of Excel just to try to verify and match up that information. Why? When nowadays you can connect the tenant's Active Directory to the base building access control system, so that way when someone removes from the Active Directory at the tenant suite, guess what? They're removed from the base building access control system, locked out of the suite, locked out of the building, no longer have to worry about that. So that's just the power of how integrations are coming into play nowadays and enabling property teams to go from, flipping through hundreds of pages of leases, hundreds of pages of Excel files to now everything's done at once. And, we can go to Walmart, get our little bottle of rosé, and, we're no longer flipping through leases on the weekends. We can have a pizza party at our house.
Right.
So that's what we want. Pizza parties at the house with the kids and the family, not with the coworkers at the office.
When you told me that, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry.
No, I've seen it too. 100% seen it too. Working in the real estate world, going in on Saturdays because things weren't integrated. Come pull these contracts, upload them into here. We're doing renewals this time. It's why? All of those
Yep.
contracts live digitized. Let's automate this and let's go.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's a great point. So, what happens if we're all forced back into our homes? Right?
Yeah.
Are you prepared? Because most of our clients, they were not prepared.
No.
There's like, well, somebody has to go in because all the leases are in a
Yeah.
file somewhere. And I'm like, what do you mean they're all paper in a file somewhere? Or they're all on our network drive and we can only access it at the office, not through VP. Right? So we all need
Yep.
to have a plan if something happens, as well as just hybrid work is a thing.
It is
That's
now.
what employees want. They're pushing hard for hybrid work.
It is. If you have to enable a frontline producer, such as a broker, to come back into the office every time to drop off paperwork, think of how much less efficient he is. If there
Yep.
was, let's say, an app where he could fill out all his paperwork, send that back to the main system, have the admins and other frontline workers, work on it, do whatever they need to do, and he can just continue selling, going from client to client, from building to building. What's that going to do for your organization? It's going to
Exactly.
get you 3, 4, 5, 6 more at bats every single month. And with inventory being as tight as it is, that's the difference between being profitable and not selling anything.
Agreed.
So what I want to dive into now that we've highlighted, how things are currently being done, some of the current challenges and pain points, What are some of the real world examples of how things are being automated now? If you want to take sort of the first one, diving into, I know a bunch of clients that we've worked on together, sort of that Yardi to Leverton integration piece. If you want to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to, I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier, where you have a client that's been using Yardi for a number of years, right? And they've been running fast and furious. We actually have a client out in on the West Coast who they are growing so rapidly. It's unbelievable. And they do run with a smaller staff because they are very tech savvy. So when they learned that they could use Leverton to extract all of the information and the 800 data points that they care about out of their leases, and be able to then compare that to what they've been putting into Yardi using Synatic, they were super excited because it's great to go forward, right?
Yeah.
Solution's great to go forward. You know that all of the new leases and everything will be great and it'll be beautiful using our solution to pull that information out and using Synatic to push it into Yardi, which we all know pushing into Yardi is sometimes kind of complicated. So to be able to have an easy way to get it done is amazing. But what about that back portfolio that's really bringing you all the revenue right now, that's been out there forever, that's been touched by 5 million people because it's been there for 20 years? You need to clean that. You need to double check it. And Synatic has been able to create a report that compares that information that you have in Yardi and what you have that we double checked and pulled out of your leases, the lease and the 20 amendments and 5 renewals that are attached to it. We extract all of that information out, and then using Synatic, you're able to look and see, oh, wow, we are missing things. Oh, why are we billing that? That's not right. That's not what the lease says. And you're able to then clean up that data in Yardi, and now you're confident going forward, right? Now you know that the reports in your system, your billing system, the dollars that you're getting from your tenants is all accurate, and you're not missing a dollar.
And if you needed to push that information into from those systems into a CRM, that can be done. If you need to
Yep.
extract that in an Excel file format, that can be done as well. So no matter what that output looks like for you, Synatic can handle that. And, I think you raised a good point, Sandy. Some of the teams out there have legacy solutions or legacy instances. So Synatic can work with them because we have a couple unique features of our platforms that allow us to go into those old databases and essentially rip those files out and put them in new source destinations like a Leverton, like a
Yep.
CRM system, enabling, again, you to get access and have all your data flowing from system to system. So it's operationalized now, and there's no more screen hopping, there's no more manually deduplicating data. Because the number of times I didn't see people on a team to do that at the property world was amazing. There was just duplicates and errors passed along because you have a million and one things to do. The last thing you want to worry about is having a clean data.
Absolutely.
One of my more fun examples of successful integration with the Synatic platform was a large brokerage team we were working with on the West Coast. And what they were doing was going to their MLS system, very well-known company that out in the West Coast, and frankly, a multinational corporation that has a lot of real estate data. And so what they were doing is going and pulling that data every night if they remembered. If not, it was the following morning or the following evening, manually uploading those listings, putting them on the website, and then sometimes uploading them in the CRM. Most of the time, they were just tracking and following those deals on an Excel spreadsheet. Well, with inventory getting tighter like it is, with not being able to track everything, they were losing out on deals across the board. So when I was speaking with the CEO and IT team there, we started asking about their systems, if they had APIs, didn't have APIs. They had APIs out of the box, but they just simply moved basic pieces of information back and forth. And what the Synatic integration was able to do is we were able to extract information from the MLS system and then put a scoring model in place. And based on that, be able to funnel the leads and push those leads to exactly where they need to go. If this is a massive opportunity, we're going to push this over to Sandy because we know she can close 80% of our sales. If this is a small lead, we know we're going to push it over to John because John couldn't sell ice cream to an Eskimo. So that's the level of intelligence that you can now get in your data instead of having to manually manipulate that and manually parse it out, flip of a coin. You can put some intelligence to it now. It can be smartly parsed out.
That's an amazing example.
And it's real life. As soon as we start talking about it, and I'll actually pause there for a second because one of the biggest things I see in data, and I don't want to say an argument ensues, but what is real time? What does real time mean to these teams? And oftentimes it's 30 days, nightly. Real time means real time, people. Like, we've been sold a set of integrations that just haven't worked, and we've accepted these workarounds as okay, and they're not. And that's really what one of the things that Synatic is breaking down. When we say real time, we mean real time. If we need to get down to the nearest minute, we can do that. Obviously, if it's billions and billions of rows of data, it might take more than 1 single second. But the point still lies: real time is real time. And just your product, Sandy, what you guys have enabled for the property management world, having those real-time insights, you've saved hundreds of hours every single month, every single year by not having to dive into a lease. Like, that is massively impactful, massively. And I'm sure there's property managers, out there when, on the call, and when they see this, they're going to be like, wait a minute, I no longer have to do that? Yes. The answer is, like, the future is here.
It really keeps, so speaking of real time, right? So if I ask somebody right now to pull me the data that they have on their leases, they're going to pull me an Excel doc that was an abstraction that was done probably when the lease was signed. Maybe it gets updated every once in a while. And then you compare it to the billing system, and they'll be different because somebody remembers to put it in the billing system, but they don't remember to change the Excel abstract, right? Or maybe they'll be the same, but neither of them actually match the lease because there was an amendment a month ago that never got there. Where what we're trying to do is move the industry to really think about your lease as a living, breathing document where you always have the ability to touch and feel the latest and greatest information, right? If an amendment comes through, send it through DocuSign, MRI Secure Sign, whatever you want to use. It can immediately be picked up, sent through contract intelligence. That data is abstracted. You don't even have to worry about did the lease, the lease admin team abstract those 10 amendments that came through last month, because very often they're not doing them the next day or that same day because they don't have time. It's not on them. It's because they just don't have time. So it sits there for 15 days, 30 days, 60 days, right? And you're losing billings. And if anybody's pulling the data to do anything with it, if they can, it's not right. It's not accurate.
No, and that's a good point. They're losing billings because of billings, if you will. They have deadlines, where they have to upload into JD Edwards, MRI, Yardi accounting systems, and those have to be in by a certain time to get them to the tenant. Otherwise, guess what? They just created another hassle having to deal with the tenant of, why is my invoice late? I'm not paying that this month. It just creates a snowball effect, all from lack of integration. And with the Synatic platform, no matter who the vendor is, where you're getting the meter, whether it's a vendor you're getting the meter reads from, or you're getting them from the engineer, and it's an Excel spreadsheet or it's a CSV spit out of the automated meter system, we can take both of those files, ingest them into our platform, to Sandy's point, compare them with what the lease says we can charge, what we should be charging, and make sure everything is all in alignment, all without anybody lifting a finger. Literally by pushing one click of a button, send that Excel file off, and let the technology do the rest. We're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, on new prop tech. Why not integrate and automate the flow of that data? And again, that's where Synatic and solutions like Leverton come into play.
Yeah, absolutely. And something to think about is the great reshuffle, the great resignation, whatever we want to call it, that's happening right now.
Yes.
People are leaving their jobs, especially in North America, in droves that they feel is monotonous and below their abilities and skills. And you
Yeah.
can save your workforce by applying technology to do those very manual, not super intelligent required kind of skills, but still part of their day. And if it's 10, 20, 30% of someone's day, they're frustrated and they're going to go look for a different job. They're going to leave. It is what it is. Or if they want a promotion, but we can't promote this person because 40% of their day is really making sure that they're matching up all of these things like the meters that are coming into the leases and then going into the billing system and pushing out the invoices. Like that's that is not a hard task that
No.
someone that that you have hired and that you value in your business should be doing because you value your employees. So let's give them more strategic work and pull that manual mundane work off their plate.
Yeah,
And not only is it going to help you do all of that, but it's going to help with employee retention.
it
It
is.
it costs so much to hire and train new people compared to just keeping the people that you have.
No, it really does. And, frankly, some of those mundane tasks weren't got to because they were either so mundane or there
Yep.
was a million and one other things to do. And, some of those tasks, if they're not handled, negatively impact the bottom line, like going
Yep.
and, comparing the utility bill with what was collected on the submeter invoices. That rarely happens because there's, again, a million and one things to do at the property. But
Right.
and now all that can go away.
Exactly. Yep. There's often we think about the hard costs of what was missed, but we also kind of forget about the soft cost of the people, right? So if
That's
it
right.
is actually happening at the property, someone's doing that and they're annoyed.
They are.
And that annoyance is going to build and is going to build and is going to build. And somebody on LinkedIn is going to reach out because the recruiters are crazy right now. And and they're going to say, yeah, I mean, the grass probably is greener somewhere else. And now you're without that person who is integral to your company. It's going to take you 3 months to hire a new person, 2 months to train them. You're 6 months to a year behind, and you've spent double what that person's salary was just to replace them because they were frustrated about doing mundane tasks.
And that's very, very true. I didn't even think about it from that point, but with the great resignation, automation is key. It's going to be king, because
Yep.
to your point, data is king in the business. We have more data than ever. Today is literally the least amount of data any business is going to have. And how are you going to manage that going forward, and not have employees just do mundane tasks like, oh, I'm going to deduplicate data for the day. Like, no,
Right.
no one wants to do that. As
Nope.
a salesperson, operating in CRMs, every single CRM, no matter where I've been, there's been duplicates, there's been errors, and it's created issues with marketing, it's created issues with sales. But here at Synatic, we sort of eat our own dog food, if you will, and have our platform running. And I can tell you, it's done wonders from a marketing side, from a sales side, just being able to operate and utilize clean data, so that when I'm taking that information and going to report to my VP, my CEO, they know and they have faith and trust in the data, in the information that I'm reporting is accurate.
That's amazing. Speaking of reporting, you're probably going to come to this next. What are you seeing in the real estate world in regards to the use of things like Power BI or Tableau to run dashboards and really do high end aggregate reporting?
So right now, I'm seeing teams that are starting to think about this, starting to think about aggregating their data. A couple years ago, it was no technology in place. Then a new prop tech was popping up every single day, new prop tech popping up in the buildings. Now it's teams are starting to think about, all right, now that I have all these disparate data sets, how then do I begin to bring them into a singular point of view, bring them into a single source of truth, make sure that information is cleaned, deduplicated to be able to then report on it. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of teams, are still utilizing old legacy systems, and they're not able to get access to them. where with something like Synatic, not only could we go into that database, or we could do something as simple as, hey, that Excel file that you get extracted from there, we can take that gets automatically ingested into the Synatic platform. Information gets put in your CRM or your MRI accounting instance, and boom, guess what? That whole process is automated from billing. Um, on the reporting, really, taking a dive into the reporting side, not only can they not get access to it, but they don't have a centralized place to store that information to be able to report on it. And that's one of the biggest differentiators of the Synatic platform is the fact that we have a data warehouse underpinning our solution. So there's no longer a need for teams to go get another vendor to just be able to store data to then connect up, because a lot of the integrations that are in place that I was mentioning aren't working today. To see
Mhm.
what that looks like, go cook up some spaghetti, stick your hand in, throw that spaghetti down on a plate. That's the current integration landscape. Whereas Synatic is just a singular piece of spaghetti. It's all very linear, and you can see where things break, see where those integrations break down, so that you can get access to the data to ensure that you can always do things like reporting, have accurate reporting, and it's all centralized in one place. What are some of the things that you're seeing, Sandy, from your side when talking with customers and clients?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. I went to a summit in Colorado about a month ago, and it was mostly mid-level and above lease administration and lease accounting teams.
Okay.
But it was a summit, so it was very small and it was great. And I did a presentation on artificial intelligence and what it means. And at the end, we were talking about Power BI and Tableau. And I asked the room of about 70 to raise their hand on who's using or is looking to use something like Power BI or Tableau.
Yep.
And three-fourths of the room raised their hand, which is great. And normally you would stop there. But I wanted to know more because I'm a curious person. So I called on a couple of them that were raising their hands and I said, okay, what are you using? They're like, Power BI. What are you doing with it currently? Well, my team has one dashboard slash report that we are responsible for. Okay, great. How many different systems are you sending into that right now
Yeah.
versus how many do you need to send? And they're like, well, we really only have these two right now that we're able to push in there. We have like four more pieces of softwares that hold data that they need pushed in for this dashboard, because the dashboard is basically a look at a company concept, right? A business idea, not a set piece of the tech stack, right? They want to get a business eye view on it, not what this tech, piece of their tech stack says.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting. And I asked another person, and they said the exact same thing. Where if they worked with Synatic, they would be able to have all 7 of those pushing into Power BI, because they happen to use Power BI, and be able to have that full-fledged report dashboard that they were looking to have that they don't currently have right now. So the industry is moving towards that type of analytics because the C-suite wants it. They want to consume their data in a digestible way immediately. They don't want to be sent reports from Yardi or MRI or JDE that they have to parse through anymore. They want none of it. They want to be able to look at a dashboard and make decisions. And they're pushing that out to the teams to do. But
Yeah.
now their hands are tied because they can't figure out how to get those different pieces of their tech stack to all push into Power BI or Tableau. And that's where Synatic would be able to help them tremendously. I wish you were with me on it, because then I would have just pulled you up and said, here you go. Pitch to a room of 70 people that you can help them, because I know you can.
No, and that would have been awesome. And, really one of the ways that we can particularly help with reporting is the fact that our data warehouse, the cost on that, by utilizing our platform, you get a data warehouse. So you get integrations and a data warehouse for less than what you're going to be able to go find at a bunch of other competitors out there. So the bank for the buck, if you will, is in Synatic's corner, and would love to have that conversation with more of the real estate folks on this call about what you're looking to do with reporting and how an integration platform that has a data warehouse underpinning it can enable better reporting because, as Sandy said, there is a struggle right now to get information from multiple different systems. And, if you do have multiple systems, they do have APIs, you might not have a technical resource that can do
Right.
that. And me and my team, we can help augment that. We can be your, almost your IT team, if you will, and help ensure that data is always operationalized, getting to the right person at the right time.
Absolutely.
So really the future of data, as I just mentioned, is getting the right data to the right person at the right time. Eliminating all those manual processes, no more having to compile 15 Excel spreadsheets to then push up to an asset manager who then compiles those into one report for the CEO and president. Wasted time, whole bunch of errors, inaccurate reporting going to the top anyway. Multiple data silos, as we just discussed, starting, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, there was a new prop tech I felt like every single second of every single day for almost everything from water sensors to air quality sensors to this to that. And it was just like too much. That's created a lot of data silos in buildings. It's time that we break those down to get the data points, to get those insights, to create that experience for the tenant and be able to report on things like ESG. Because God forbid how tough that is nowadays is you guys need to be able to report and have insights on everything. How can you do that without manually adding or manually reporting and adding a whole bunch of times your day? You can't. Quicker and easier reporting, as Sandy touched on, you can quickly and easily go through a lease now, no longer having to spend hours and months doing that throughout the year or with hundreds of team members. You can access information everywhere. It's a continuity plan for if we ever go back to fully remote again, guess what? Your team is fully operational in the cloud versus having to go on site. And if your producers are in the field, we keep them in the field, not coming back to the office, pushing that information to the teams that need it, actioning it, and then continuing to go. One of my favorite ones, and we will wrap with this, is the fact that now these asset managers, these senior leaders in the real estate world, because we have things like a data warehouse underpinning the solution, are now able to finally, for once in their lives, get a 360-degree view with real-time information of what's actually going on in their portfolio. And one of the reasons why is because we're able to provide them with a platform that does things like have a actual API that does comparative analytics versus a standard integration that only moves basic data. So would love to talk to everybody on this call further and see how the Synatic platform can truly operationalize your data from CRE system to CRE system and the intelligence that that can provide. And so this is what the future of data, future of automation looks like. Information flowing from the left, all your source systems going through the Synatic platform, pushed over to your destination systems. Now I know we have a couple minutes left. I will open up the floor for any questions that anybody has. Stop share here for a second. All right. Well, there's no questions. Appreciate everyone's time. We'll be sending this webinar out via email to all those that registered. So appreciate everyone's time. Look forward to future conversations on how to access your data in a multi-system world. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, everyone.